I don't want our female partners to be looking at us and thinking, well, that is inherently toxic because you don't want to engage in the conversation. What do you
Mhm.
have to hide? Why are
Yeah.
you so afraid? What are you running from? And I want us to be more curious and ask, why is it hard for you to want to share about
Yeah.
these things? I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand. I'm your partner. I'm here
Yeah.
with you. I got you. Help me understand
Yeah.
so I can learn and try to maybe tailor my approach to yours so that we can have more healthy discussion with each other.
I do want to get into, I guess, some toxic relationship red flags. All right,
Sure.
what to look out for? What are some signs, just based on your professional experience? And I know I shared my experience, right? And so to me,
Hmm.
that was a clear sign, right? No respect,
Yeah.
no lack of boundaries. Those are some easy ones, but give us those harder ones.
And I think one thing I think is important too, when we think about this, is the person who's saying them. So the way that men might perceive things are going to look a little different than the way a woman might, right?
Okay,
Let
I
me
like
let me let
that.
me try to give like an example. So for a woman, in most cases, you correct me if I'm wrong here. In many cases, the expectation is that when we have something that we're feeling, we're going to want to confront. We're going to want to talk about it and try to figure out, what's going on so we can try to resolve it. Is that fair for me to say?
That is accurate for a woman. We do want to discuss our feelings,
Okay.
yes,
Which
and we
again,
want them addressed ASAP.
which I like that, by the
Yes.
way. So part of this is understanding for most men, and this is a PSA for any women out there and men who may not want to admit this. Most of us have never been taught how to express ourselves. And so because of that, you got to understand that it's inherently frightening for many of us, or it's just a situation where we would much rather avoid. We would
It's
much rather do
uncomfortable.
anything else than actually have to engage and actually sit down and have that discussion with you.
Yes. And I think for me, I've had those experiences, and men look uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? Totally uncomfortable, just or laughing when it's not a laughing matter, but I know it's
Oh
more of
yeah.
a nervous laugh, right?
Oh
Because they're
yeah.
just,
There's a,
not into
there's
it.
a lot of discomfort, and so I like to put that on the table as like a starting point because I want us to again understand each other. Where are we coming
Yeah.
from? If you have
Yeah.
expectations up here, but your partner's here, you're just gonna get disappointed, man.
Hello.
You need your
Yeah.
expectations to be in alignment with where your partner is at today. Just like if you have a child, I do, you can't expect them to do things that they don't know how to do. If they've never been taught, if they've never been trained, you wouldn't scream at your kid, right? Or your subordinate at your job. Nobody's
Yeah.
trained them. So you wouldn't expect that of them. You got to look at a
Our
lot of men in the same way. A lot of us have never been formally taught or even modeled that healthy behavior, myself included. I was not taught any of this stuff.
I
I had to learn all
agree.
this secondhand. Go ahead.
I guess what my issue is when you say I'm almost 40 and I'm meeting grown men, and you say I hope some other woman taught them this before they
You
got to me.
you would
And
hope, right?
it's not happening. I'm going to be honest. At least even in my experience, I meet them 40 and older, and
Yeah. I
they don't
mean,
have it.
and listen, and I'm trying to make sure I stick to the red flag point, but I feel like this is important. Again, this context is really important for us to remember
Yes.
because it helps you kind of understand the lens in which you should be measuring, is this person being toxic with me or not? Because it might
Exactly.
not be, but it
Exactly.
could, if you don't understand it, you might not understand what to look for. To your point, I've had grown men clients older than me. I'm 36. I've had men like, in their 50s, 60s, even in their 70s over the course of my career who still struggle with communicating. And I know
Yeah.
how hard it was for me, and I'm not as old as they are. One thing we know about human behavior is the longer you do something for an extended period of time,
The
the more
heart.
normalized it is. Even if you
Yes.
don't like it, even if you don't like it,
Yes.
we are all creatures of habit. We just do things because that is the way humans are.
Getting
So
into it.
if I understand that a man, in many cases, my man, a man, my son, this guy has not been trained or taught to do these things, the first thing I need to ask is, did you learn appropriate communication? If so, let's actually be engaging in these discussions. If we're dating, that should be happening off day one. So there
Right.
is no years later, I just figured it out. That shouldn't be happening. That to me means you're not dating intentionally.
Listen.
You just
So
kind of, you just were looking at something else. Maybe you got infatuated, and now you made all these other subsequent plans without really doing the work to make sure, is this person in alignment with who I am and what I want, right?
Definitely. I think what you're telling me is be easier on the men, Sean. And for my viewers, I want to say the same thing. You know, you got to be a little bit more patient and a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
more, right, and a little bit more understanding.
Yeah.
That's the plea I hear from you for my Black and brown men.
No,
Is-
no, seriously.
no, it's
It's a big one. It's the whole reason why I started making content, to talk to the men, because I know that it starts, especially as a father,
yes,
it starts when they're young. I
yes,
just told you that I didn't have that experience.
yes,
I could easily be one of those guys.
yes.
Me. If I didn't have other family members to provide certain levels of warmth and empathy and compassion to help me recognize that it was okay to feel, even though majority of the time I was being told it wasn't,
Yes,
that helped create some level of space to be comfortable, to trust that I can be honest with this person.
yes.
But one thing I would ask you and your viewers, again, this is not a, we're not going to acknowledge red flags, because there's still men who do manipulate. So we're not going to say
Yes,
that
we're going
they're
to-
mutually exclusive, because they're not. But this is one other point that I'd like to make, just to consider. If you're thinking about with your partner this journey that you want to take, and you're thinking about, how am I going to sort of measure what to look for in this person? If I know they have never really had any significant experience, and they haven't really had any significant practice through just basic conversations that we're having right on the beginning, right?
You'll have
You-
that day one usually.
Right. You gotta make a conscious decision.
Yes.
If I know that I can't really deal with that right now, then don't continue to engage. Take that step back, right? Because it's okay for us as people, we need to grow.
Yeah.
We need to be challenged
Yeah.
so that we can evolve and be better for the future.
That don't mean I gotta wait on you.
No,
No.
you don't have to. But
Yeah.
my point is, let's consider the full context,
Yes.
because then you may decide, I don't want to give this person this chance, because
Exactly.
they're not
That's what I
they're not
mean.
as ready as I would need them to be, and that is absolutely okay to say.
Yeah.
But I think for some of us, because we're kind of jumping into situations, we're not really thinking about all the different factors that really compose who that person is.
Yeah.
And if we're avoiding those more difficult conversations, or you don't hear these type of stories like I'm trying to share with you right now, you might not know to look for that. And
Yeah.
I would be the first one telling you, hey, most men in the world, I'm not talking about in the United States,
And not just
do
black
not
men.
know how to do this stuff. Yes, of all backgrounds, don't know how to do this stuff. And it's not because we're not emotional. It's not because we're broken. It's not because we run from these type of discussions. Again, if you've been asked to do something, keep this in mind. If you've been asked to do something, okay, by somebody that you've never learned how to do, you would run too.
Yes, you would fail. RJ, I 100% agree with you. I don't know if you know, I was a hairstylist for 20 years. I've talked to many women in my chair about men and what they knew. And I already kind of advocated for them. I was always an advocate for, they don't know it. And so the way I would tell them is saying, who cares what he learned about the last woman, right? Who cares what his mama taught him? Tell him, you're dating me. You got to learn me. It's just that simple. And yeah, and so I think it's right in alignment with what you're saying. And that's going to take time, right? That's going to take patience.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to learn you overnight. You're going to have to communicate, right? And verbalize the things you need sexually, which a lot of women struggle with, emotionally, right? You're going to have to be able to have those tough conversations. And that's
Absolutely.
something I talk about on the Build Spot all the time. It's just having those tough conversations in the beginning,
100%.
throughout the entire relationship, so you can learn each other. Because at the end of the day, you're just trying to live together. Hey, I'm trying to make a relationship work for us, right? Not for everyone else. And so,
and the key word that you said, if we're thinking about the relationship, right, is you said us. So that means that I have to remember, and that's both sides.
yes,
That I have to remember that the world doesn't operate from my point of view.
hello.
I have my personal bias. We all do.
Yes,
But if I'm going to be with you, I need to learn how you see things. I don't have to agree with everything that you say. My point is, I need to understand. I need to try to understand. We need to communicate in detail so that I can understand why you do the things that you do and vice versa. Going back to your point about red flags, because
Yes.
then I can distinguish a lot easier, is it a red flag or not? Because if I
Exactly.
understand my guy has never really had this discussion, he's never been with somebody who's challenged him to actually learn, but more importantly, provided the space for him to be comfortable to want to open up. That's why he runs from these conversations, not because he's a runner, it's because
Exactly.
nobody's giving him the space to do so. So that
Exactly.
might help me reframe or recategorize a red flag.
Exactly, because that could be the difference between, is he ignoring me, or right,
Right.
is he
Or
just afraid to
is he
have these
neglectful?
conversations?
Is he afraid?
Exactly.
And then, you could break it down in different ways. If you were saying, like, for example, a big one to me on both sides is like invalidating somebody's point of view. That
Mhm.
could be a toxic trait.
Yes.
But what I would say first to try to understand is, why do you feel the need to invalidate that person's point? Meaning, if we're in a relationship and you tell me, I don't like it when you say this to me, it comes across as being a bit disrespectful.
Mhm.
And then I say to you, well, that's your problem. I'm not disrespecting you, so you need to get over it. Right? That's invalidating you. So I'm not allowing you to feel what you feel. I'm telling you what you're feeling is wrong. Let me flip that on its head. That's what happens to a lot of men.
Mhm.
Not that phrase,
Yes.
the actions.
Yes.
The actions are, it kind of comes off like a lot of people don't really care about how a lot of men feel. So
Ooh.
naturally, you can't be surprised then that men don't want to express how they feel if everybody's kind of giving them these impressions that they don't care. They want you to provide. They want you to be stable, right? They want you
Wow.
to be stoic in nature,
Wow.
meaning like a rock. They don't
Yes.
want you to be like, well, I did have a hard day and I'd like to talk about it. Or I'm going through this thing in my life and I would like to share. A lot of people don't really want to give the space
A lot of
for men to
mothers,
do
right?
that.
They raise their
Right.
sons and they tell them, don't cry, don't be soft.
Absolutely. I,
Oh
I
my
make
God. And
I make videos about it. I have mothers who bring their sons to me. And I've listened to what some of these moms say. And then, this is not me. I'm not trying to attack moms. So just to be clear,
no, no, no.
but I've had some clients who I had to challenge the mom, and I would ask them, why do you feel like that's okay to talk to him like that?
Yeah.
They're like, well, my mom was hard on me and she said, toughen up and ain't nobody got time for your feelings and this and that. And I'm just like, hey, his life is better. Like, I literally had a client. I told this story on one of my one of my
Yeah.
videos. I was like, she literally told me, like, he doesn't have a right to have these feelings because his life is way better than mine. I was like,
Oh,
ma'am,
I've heard of
you
those.
can't say that. He didn't live your life. He doesn't know what your life was compared to his. Even if you broke it down
He can't
completely to him,
relate.
he
He
can't live it.
can't
So
understand.
you're trying to pass on almost like this kind of generational trauma to him,
Yeah.
as if he should be
You
appreciative.
should be grateful for
Right.
where
You
he
need to
at.
be grateful and kind of shut the F up.
Yeah.
That's not okay.
It's not
You,
good.
you, you can't have that expectation of him. And again, that goes both ways. So the reason why I'm trying to break all this down is just to say, when we use these terms like toxic, I really want us to go in a little more detail.
Yes.
What is it about that person that might be a red flag?
Yes.
What is it about that person and their behavior or the way that they speak that might look that way? And is it something that we can actually address, or is that person actually trying to deceive you or manipulate you?
I would say definitely, just based on what you're saying, I would categorize it as a toxic red flag if someone is purposely, right, trying to hurt you, purposely
Oh yeah,
trying,
most
you know,
definitely. Or
versus
or or gaslighting you, trying to make you, again, like, invalidate, making you think things that are happening aren't happening, misrepresenting situations in your mind, trying to manipulate you. I don't want to believe that most people are doing that, but I certainly agree there are individuals who do that for their own reasons.
yes,
That's absolutely behavior to look out for. But the reason why I tried to break down what a lot of men go through is because I don't want our female partners to be looking at us and thinking, well, that is inherently toxic because you don't want to engage in the conversation. What do you
hmm,
have to hide? Why are
yes,
you so afraid? What are you running from? And I
mhm,
want us to be more curious and ask, why is it hard for you to want to share about
yes,
these things? I'm
yes,
trying to understand. I'm your partner. I'm here
yes,
with you. I got you. Help me understand
yes.
so I can learn and try to maybe tailor my approach to yours so that we can have more healthy discussion with each other.
100%, yes, and avoid the toxicity then, or what you right, or what appears right that maybe have been toxic.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
agree. All right, I love it.